And I want to get started by just really commending you for being here, for wanting to understand what's happening with the energy that we've just been through, and then also with the energy that we're heading into. I know that if you hear, there's an understanding of numerology, but I just want to touch on what's so important to understand about the power of numbers is that if you go back in history, numbers have always been so relevant. You can't actually do anything without the power of numbers. It is impossible. If you remove numbers from the world, we literally could not function. It's the coding of computers, it's absolutely everything. We wouldn't be able to connect with each other. We wouldn't be able to do so many different things. And every number has a really specific power, a very specific power. So what we're looking at tonight, and I just want to make sure that all of you have it. If you don't have your specific numbers, we'll help you get them afterwards, or you can just type to Di, because Di is also really good at us navigating it together. For you to truly work with your numerology, you should be working with 3 sets of numbers the whole time. The one is your life path number. So that's when you take your day and your month and your year and you add them together. It's really important. So for example, I'm the 24th of the 9th. And then, so what you got to do is you got to take the 2 and the 4 to get a 6. Then you'll add 6 plus 9. You need to take your birth. Let's just take someone born in 2000 because it's easier math. So then you will need to add 6 plus 9 plus 2. You add it in a row. If you get any other number besides 11, 22, or 33, you add those numbers again. We don't add 11, 22, and 33 because those are master numbers. Okay, so the first set of numbers that you're always going to be working with is your life path number. The life path number gives you your traits. Those are the traits that you use when you are confident and that you also activate within yourselves when you are in low esteem. So if you book the joint reading between Di and myself, when you get that reading, you will have your confident traits and your low esteem traits. When we send out the email with the recording tomorrow, you're going to get the details on how to book. The second set of numbers, which is so important, is the number that we add together of the year. So when we take 2024, we are currently in an 8 year. And what that does is it holds collective energy for all of us to have the same experiences. So we are all having the same experiences that activate an 8, which I'm going to talk about. Next year, we're all going to have the same experiences that activate the 9. So the 8 calls for us to lean into certain things and to be mindful of low esteem responses, the same as what the 9 is going to do. And the third number that is vital is what is your personal year. So that is when you take, if you haven't done it before, listen carefully, it's only your day and your month, and then you add it to the year. So this year you would have taken your day and your month and you would have added it to 2024. Next year, you're going to take your day and your month and you're going to add it to 2025, and that makes your personal year. And that's why it's so important to personalize numerology, right? Because when you just look at a specific number, for example, when you only look at the 8 and you don't look at the 8, which we've been in this year, in isolation to what do I have to learn about myself within this 8 energy, right? And what do I have to work on most because it is this particular year for me in numbers? Makes sense? How's that, Di? Has anything come through from that? Is everyone good?
No. Margareta says she's a life path 3. So next, and personal year 9 this year. So next year, she starts a new cycle in a year of letting go. That's quite a biggie.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anyone who doesn't have their numbers? We're so happy to pause and just see if there's anyone who just doesn't have their numbers, who needs a little bit of help. Otherwise, if you are happy to wait and we do it together, just let us know. Just pop a message to Di and let us know. Okay. Di, do you want to launch straight into last year, this year's energy that we're in?
Yeah, I think so, because when we had the Conscious Living Fair on Saturday and I was chatting to various people, I think every single person said to me how hard and how challenging this year had been. So I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about the 8 year, because I know at the beginning of the year when you and I did a couple of webinars and you put out the info about the 8 year, I think everybody focused on the year of abundance and prosperity, like, woohoo, like this is my year, this is going to happen for me. But I think what we forget is that everything has an opposite. So as you get the positives, you're also going to get the challenges. And I think that a lot of us, including myself, didn't actually pay much attention to the challenges of the 8 year, because it is that beautiful, the as above, so below, and it's the number of, the eternal. And I think a lot of us got tripped up by that. So before we go into next year, if Elmarie says it's been a really yuck year, and
Yeah.
it has, I think it's preparing us for the 9 year of that letting go. But yeah, I think so many of us have been really pushed by the energy of this year. So maybe just to talk a little bit about some of the challenges. I think that the happiest thing for me is I'm not alone in these challenges.
Yeah.
After speaking to
Yeah.
all these people
Yeah.
on Saturday, I was like, oh my word, like this is really a universal theme for a
It
lot of
is.
people. So
It
maybe
is.
just share a little bit with us around that.
So it's really important to understand that there's very specific wording that I use. So I talk about your confident responses and your low esteem responses. You won't hear me talk about shadow in any way. You will always hear me talk about the opportunity to work within the confident energy and what sparks confidence, or something that is within low esteem. And it's because these universal energies only see, if you can animate what it looks like, this universal energy with this whole consciousness eye on you only sees your worthiness, right? Doesn't see anything more than your worthiness. And then when we are born with our beautiful personality. We are born in the DNA of who we are is the personality that you are going to have. It is absolute divine timing. It's always divine timing. And your soul wisdom and your soul knowledge is the confident traits of who you are, right? Slowly over time, as you walk through life and things happen, you activate the ego mind. So you got to think of the ego mind as an empty cabinet when you're born. There is nothing in it. And as something happens, you put a memory in it. And that every single one of those memories that goes into the ego mind creates your low self-esteem responses according to your traits. Okay. And what happens in a universal year is there are these positive, confident responses and energies that life wants you to navigate towards within your personality. But then there is also the other side of it that actually creates opportunity. It's opportunity for you to tap into your worthiness and lean into your more confident traits, or to overcome your low esteem traits. So a perfect example is the fanfare of an 8 is that it is about money, and it is about power, and it is about wealth, right? And it is about opportunity. The opportunities that you have to navigate yourself through within your personality is to overcome uncertainty, to overcome anxiety, to overcome, and this is the biggest of all, empowerment versus disempowerment, right? So everything, if you really and truly sit and think about this year, if we just hold the energy for a moment, think about the amount of things that actually came up where you felt disempowered, where you had to take your power back. And what makes it so personal is when you understand within your traits and what your life journey is, then you can really start to see the places where you were literally being asked energetically to step into your power. We do beautiful money work. It's called Money and Me, and in the money workshop that we do, we talk about money as this intimate partner and friend, partner, like really connected to you. So if you had to imagine sitting opposite money, having a cup of coffee, and it's been a rough year, so maybe a glass of wine or a whiskey or whatever's going to get you through, right? And if money had to say to you, I'm going to arrive right now. I don't care whether you don't reach your esteem. I don't care whether you don't reach your potential. I don't care whether you stay in low esteem. We know that that messaging would never come through from the universe. What money is actually saying to you, and the reason why it's so important this year, and it's either going to be money or it's going to be power. Some people are going to say to me, but Joe, I didn't have money stuff this year. Then I'm going to say to you, but then what was happening in your space where there was a grappling with power? Something's disempowering me. I never have time to myself. I never get to the things that are important to me. I am always so loving and giving and caring, and I never feel like I am getting that loving, caring back in return, right? Whether it's money or whether it's power, when it's sitting opposite you in this particular year, the energy will say to you, the only way to get your attention is to get you into a place of really having to fight for what you have. And that's why the money struggle has been the way that it has, because we have really had to be pushed, whether it's the money or whether it's the power, in order for a year to complete itself and energetically know that it has served us in the best possible way. It needs to have pushed the opportunities to change. It needs to have pushed the boundaries of uncertainty this year. It needs to have pushed the boundaries of getting through being self-critical, of getting through the apprehension that you have about the choice that you're about to make, or the plans that you want. One of the big things that we worked on this year, whether we realized it or not, and we're in it. Everyone's holding their own story right now, personally, within themselves, within every relationship that you have, and within whatever's happening in the world. One of the big things is to be very careful to not get into a place of resentment. Resentment was and still is a big one. And I'm going to show you how resentment leads into the energy of next year. But and this is why Diane and I like to do this around this time of year, right? We don't want to do it like on the brink of a new year, because I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, are you sitting with any kind of resentment? Are you in resentment, or you're on the brink of resentment? Because that is most probably the most important thing to work through. When you sit in a space like that, what you're doing is you are disempowering yourself, which is the very energy of the 8. By the time this year ends, you want to have claimed your power back. And this is what's so important. Maybe nothing's going to change, but you still need to have claimed your power back. You actually need to get into the place of going, it is what it is. What do I have the power to change? Which is such an important place to get to before this year comes to an end. Did that?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just, because some people are, I'm just answering a couple of people here. So there's a couple of people already asking about their, so some people have the master number in their life path. Okay, they have the 211. Does that have more of an impact on a personal year if there's a master number in the life path for those that do have master numbers?
So if you have a master number, it's going to be different for you all the time. Anyone who's an 11, a 22, and a 33, you came in with a different soul contract. You came in with the soul, and if you want the common thread of that soul contract, the 11 is very much about holding on to your, all of them are trusting your intuition. 11, 22, and in all my years of numerology, which is, I don't know, 90, 30, whatever years it is of numerology, I've worked with 133, right? But your 11, 22, 33, it is, if you don't listen to your intuition, like if we don't listen to our intuition, life, knocks us around a little bit. But when, as a 22, 11, and a 22, to really lean into it. If you are an 11, compassion is such a huge thing for you. So the things that come up in your life could really push those boundaries of compassion. They really and truly could. And if you are a 22, did I say 11? I did say 11, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you are a 22, it's really about this independence and individuality and how you fit into the world as so independent, because you would really feel like you don't belong. You would really feel like, how am I here? Why am I here? How am I here? And to fit into the world and find your place in the world.
Okay. Yeah. And then those who are in the same personal year. So I've just done Natasha's for her, and she's in a personal year 8, in a personal year 9 next year. How does that differ from those of us? So like next year, I'm in a personal year 4. How does it differ when your personal year is in alignment with the universal energy of the year?
So I'm just double checking. It's not their life path number that's the same. It's their personal year.
It's their personal year. Yeah.
Okay. So when your personal year is trailed and aligning, it doesn't make that much of a difference. What it is the personal year. So the personal year for all of us, for example, we're in the 8. It's going to be about empowerment, disempowerment. How have you really stepped into your confidence? This year has been a big thing. How have you been determined and assertive in what you want? So then in the personal year, they'll be doing the same things. It will be aligned. So for example, if I use myself as an example, in this personal year 8, I'm in a 5, in the collective year 8, I'm in a 5 personal year, and the 5 has been about expansion. And I have spent this entire year, Di is like witness, I've spent this entire year grappling with moments of absolute confidence and then uncertainty on how do I expand? What do I put into the world? How do I expand? Di must be exhausted from all of the different backwards and forwards. So, and that's why it's so important to know all your layers. So someone who is an 8 in an 8, or an 8 in their personal year is an 8, what will happen is you will be dealing with your own personal for example, empowerment, while the world is also going through empowerment.
Okay, so what I'm feeling about this year then is looking at everybody's challenges, that this year has been so challenging. Is it because we've really been forced to look at the things that are no longer working for us, or things that we are ignoring, that we just would prefer not to actually face reality or face facts? If I look at myself, for example, with this whole money situation, I was in this space of waiting, but how long can I wait? And then it got to the point where it really got difficult, and it was like, you know what? The 8 year is the expansion, but I'm not expanding. So therefore, all of these challenges and stresses came up. So I think for those of us who have gone through a lot of challenge, and probably some people are not going to like what I'm going to say, is we're really being forced out of comfort zones,
Yeah.
having to face reality and make uncomfortable and really difficult and sometimes heartbreaking decisions. Is that a fair assessment of the year?
So it is, and I'm going to tell you why. It's because numbers work in the sequence. The numerology works in the sequence for a very particular reason. You go from one energetic realization into the next from year to year to year. Okay. And so I'm only going to start at 5. So 5, when we were in a 5-year, in however many years back it was, we were really and truly asking ourselves as a collective. 2020 was a 4, right? So let's do that. 2020 was a 4. So 2020 was all about everything is disrupted, because 4 is the number of stability, 4 is the number of structure and what you have in place. And all of a sudden, our foundation was completely cracked, right? What we should have gotten from the 3 was, who is my community and who are my people? So that when it happened, we knew who we could lean into and who we could lean onto. And we also knew what our creative expression was. So that's why so many of us in the 4 tried all these different ways to pivot, because we had realized that, right? When we got to 2021, which was then the 5 energy, it was like, okay, I survived 4. How can I now expand? What have I learned about myself that I can now expand and grow into that? From that expansion, and the expansion's not always comfortable, but from that expansion, what happened when we went into the 6th year is we then started to have a look at, where do my responsibilities lie? What does home feel like to me? And in that 6th year, we were really starting to have a look at how we were honoring ourselves, right? And when you get to that point, last year in the 7th year is the year of the scholar. And that's when you really start to question in that 7th year. It usually feels quite isolated. So if you think about last year, it most probably had all of these different elements of isolation and trying to figure yourself out to learn as much as you wanted to and to understand. And it's this balance between wisdom and knowledge, right? And gathering all of that is actually really empowering. So when you step into an 8, the universe literally says to you, what did you do from what you learned? What did you do with what you learned? And this is what this 8 year has been about, right? You learned all of that. Did you lean into it? And did you use it? And do you feel empowered? Okay, which is a tricky question. And the 8 is here because it's getting us ready for the 9. And the 9 is going to say to you, from how you discovered where you are empowered and disempowered, what do you want to keep and what do you want to let go of? That's what's coming up. So it works in layers all the time. And if we skip a step, for example, if there were really things that were in your face that you should have learned in the 7, and you totally ignored them, you didn't learn the lesson, all the different kind of things, then it'll come in with the 8, right? It will come in because it's still not complete. So a 9, which is next year, a 9 is always a big year. The reason why it's so big, and when we talk about archetypes, is it's the year of the humanitarian. The reason why it's so big is because there has to be break in structure, there has to be break in systems, there has to be break in your own personal life, right? But it's the way you do it. It's the way you do it. And if you step into 2025 disempowered, you're going to step in as the victim. You're going to step in and you're not going to do the letting go with words like compassion, empathy, grace, tolerance, wisdom. That's why the 8 is so important, because the 8 is the number of the leader, right? And the 8 wants to mold you to be the leader in your own life and be a really, really confident leader, not a leader who is going to break and be destructive and hurt anyone in the process of letting go and preparing yourself for your new, which is coming up the year after.
Okay, so Margareta's just made a comment and said, so this year is her personal year 9. And I realize that for some people, they might still be getting their heads around life paths, personal and universal. So the personal year 9 is your date of birth, day and month, and the year all added together to get to a single digit. So this year was her personal year 9. And she's still figuring out how it came up within the 8 universal year of power and money.
Okay. So in an 8, when you have a 9 in an 8, it's going to ask you, where do you feel disempowered, right? Where is there any level of resistance or places where, and it's so important for you to pick the words that I'm using, because some people in the opportunities to change in an 8 can become very, very arrogant, and other people can become very, very timid. So you need to decide which way you go, right? Resentful is a big one. And Margaret, I'm chatting to you, we know each other, right? So resentment is a big one. And disempowerment is a really, really big one. So it's to ask yourself, how do I let go of those? So how is it my year of letting go of those so I can end the year feeling empowered? And this is such an important statement for everybody. It has got nothing to do with anybody else. You cannot say, I will feel disempowered if someone else changes. I will take my power back if or when. It is about claiming your power in the dynamic that you are in. It's like if you are in quicksand, if it feels like you are in quicksand, you need to know, and I'm talking about this 9 energy, so it applies for everyone, but I want to link it to the 9. You need to know that you have got to get out of that quicksand yourself, and you will literally rise out of it by connecting into how do I empower myself through compassion? How do I empower myself through empathy? How do I empower myself through the wisdom that I can gain from how this actually is serving me? There is nothing in life that we are given that does not serve us. There is nothing in life that we are given that does not serve us. There is a difference, though. The thing is that you have to make the choices that make it serve you. You have to actually make the choices that make it serve you. And that's really leaning into those confidence. So I hope that that helps with the 9. When you're in a personal year 9 in this 8, when there's all these things that are playing into disempowerment, what can happen with that is that it can really be people crossing your boundaries and you avoidant of certain things that need to be dealt with. It can be a year, a 9 overall can be a year that where you can really get into a space of feeling like time has been wasted or what you've done has been wasted, because you're at the end. You're at the end. So it's to turn that around and lean into the lessons, lean into how can I be the leader in the chaos? How can I be the leader in the chaos, no matter what? Someone has to lead people out of the chaos, right? And you've got to lead yourself out of the chaos.
It's a really good question to, in fact, I'm going to write it in my planner, is what about this is making me feel disempowered? Because I think that sometimes that is happening to us and we don't realize that we're actually feeling disempowered. So I think to hold that question, like, why, what about this is making me feel disempowered? And I think that goes back to really being honest with how we're actually feeling. And I think that is also been part of a lot of people's struggle this year.
Absolutely. And this, I'll tell you what's going to disempower every single one of us is if you don't know who you are, to have the capacity to lean into your strengths in the time when you need yourself. That is what disempowerment is. Disempowerment is not having a strong enough relationship with yourself to be able to say, the chaos has come, hang on 1 second, who am I? And this is where I really am such a firm believer that you need to lean into something where you're not guessing who you are. And I know that there's so many different avenues to get to who you are, but you actually need to work into something and with someone. I'm not a fan at all of any kind of self-test where you get to answer for yourself and then decide for yourself. You actually need to have someone who understands the depth of personality and the depth of persona and the depth of what it means to have certain traits. What do you do? If I say to you, what do you do when you have a low self-esteem response? You're kind of going to have this guesswork of what you do in comparison to there is a place that each one of us go to in low self-esteem. So I am an 8 life path number. And the place that I go to in low self-esteem, it is consistent and it is uncertainty. And there are people here who know me and love me, and they are going to tell you that if they could come off mic, they would say, she has changed her mind. And I'm not talking about the nomad stuff. That's fine. I'm talking about in the space of 8, what am I going to do? How am I going to change the world? How am I going to empower the world? I have changed as the uncertainty comes and comes and comes and comes again and again and again. And because I know that about myself, I have learned to sit in something before I tell too many people. I have learned to lean into I've learned to really lean into like being practical. Joe, don't sit with this, be practical. When I focus on being practical, when I focus on how capable I am, and when I focus on the leader that I am, because an 8 is a strong leader, I can pull myself back in. That's what we're talking about. That's why it's so important. If you're going to do anything next year, and carrying on, because we then get into a 1, it's such a simple statement. I don't care how we feel about religion. I don't care how we feel about the Bible, but literally strip everything away and just hold on to the words, know thyself. Know thyself. It is the greatest gift. It anchors you. It anchors you.
Are
The
there
question,
any questions? Yeah, if you want to, okay. So Laurie says she's a life path 22 and she doesn't understand what that means for her.
Okay, I'm gonna touch on a life path 22. I have another 22 here as well. So what it means to be a 22 in confidence is to really understand that when it comes to your intuition and your determination and your assertiveness, like if we ask the outside world, like, it's okay, but for a 22 to ask the outside world and not like absolutely go inwards, then you disempower yourself. But the problem with a 22 is that a 22 is very impatient. A 22 doesn't wait it out. And also it's difficult for a 22 to really just get into that place of surrender. Like, I must be doing something to make a difference. I must be doing something to make a difference. And actually, you kind of need to get into the place of, you are strong-willed. You need to honor that you're strong-willed. You need to honor that you are self-motivated. You need to honor the amount of courage that you have and the amount of innovation that you have. 22s are usually forward thinking, so they're a bit ahead of the times, and then that means the world's got to catch up, and that's where that patience is so important, which you don't really have. And then you become critical on yourself. Interestingly about the 22 is that you can use your humor to actually be unkind to yourself. So you kind of make it funny and unkind, but you're actually being unkind to yourself in the process. Okay, I hope that helps a little bit, Laurie. Okay.
Okay, so Sharon says, I'm an 11 and I would like to know what is my personal year. So Sharon, what you have to do is take the day and the month of your birth and the year 2024 and add all those digits together until you get down to a single digit. I don't know what your month and day of birth is, but that's how you get to it.
Yeah, I saw other people helping other people in. While
Yeah.
you do that, I actually want to talk about that, because that's a huge part of the 9, and it's actually a part of the energy that we're moving into. Next year's 9, the year of the humanitarian. So we're going into the year of the humanitarian. So a lot of, when we look at a 9 and people talk about a 9, people are going to talk about endings, letting go and endings, letting go and endings. And I want to just reassure you that the best way to let go and end things is to actually be working on what you're creating. So it's not so much about I'm dumping this and I'm dropping this, as much as I'm shifting my focus onto this, especially because of everything that you have learned from this year. Little examples, like if you are on a weight loss journey, right? Don't say things like, next year I'm losing the weight, like it's about the losing of the weight. That's not how the 9 works. The 9 works about going deeply into, like, really activating compassion for yourself and bringing in healthier eating habits. Those healthier eating habits are actually letting go of the unhealthy things that you do. If there are any kind of relationship dynamics where you have realized within this year that there's disempowerment within it, it's about, how do I show compassion either to myself or to the other person by, for example, learning about ourselves. Or you actually bring change about by leaning into, and you're going to hold on to beautiful words like compassion and generosity and wisdom and tolerance. Tolerance is so important next year. And tolerance is important for you to show tolerance towards yourself, right? And it's so important for you to show, to literally, we've got to put tolerance into the world. We've got to put tolerance into the world. What we're going to see next year, and I don't do any prediction, and the reason why I don't do prediction is because you can completely change your mind in a moment, and then your whole life story will change, right? So this is not prediction when I'm saying it, but what I'm saying is that we are going to, if the world is exactly as it is, if we take a snapshot of the world as it is today, we are going to hit a fortune of intolerance, a fortune of intolerance. And the way to come at it is to come at it with compassion. And this is what's so important. We do not work in linear energy. We work in energy that moves and flows. Anything that's straight like this actually doesn't have a pulse. It doesn't have a flow. So it moves like this. So that means that if you see intolerance in the world, right? Be kind and compassionate to your neighbor. Be kind and compassionate. You do not have to. You're not trying to get other people around you to be tolerant. And you also do not have to, because you've learned empowerment this year. In this 8th year, you have learned empowerment, and you have learned how you want to be treated, right? Therefore, when you see whatever's happening in the world, you don't demand from someone to be tolerant of you. You just make a clear decision. This is the energy that I choose not to be around, right? And you exit that energy and you show your tolerance somewhere else. And that's how it will spiral, and that's how it will flow. It's the year of understanding next year. It's absolutely the year of the visionary. So every single one of us who is conscious and who is aware in any kind of way, and if you are here, you are conscious and you are aware, it is to hold the vision of what does kindness do? What does compassion do? What does wisdom do? And lean into that, because the opportunities to change and the sticky things that we're going to get to is a lot of neglect. The 9 shows it's the opposite, right? If there's so much compassion and so much humanitarian in the light of it, right, then obviously we're going to see so much neglect. And this is what's so important. Do not neglect yourselves. Next year is the year of eating what serves your body right, drinking the water, waking up and doing whatever it is that gets your body moving and healthy. And it is really the year to not neglect yourself. It's also the year, and this is the big one, it's the year of change averse. So we're going to see a lot of places where people don't want change. And you also, every single one of us, if we take it as neutral, and I don't know who you are, and I don't know how you're going to do this, and I just look at what's the default. The default is going to be that according to your life path number and your personal year, things are going to need to change, right? And life next year is going to go, this year it was going, let's see how empowered you are, or you're willing to be, to take your power back. Next year is going to say, let's see how willing you are to change for yourself, to change for what's good for you. And change is
and that applies to all the personal years. Doesn't
that
matter
applies
what.
to everyone. And then it's
Okay.
the pockets of how does change work, right? So change is going to work for a life path 1 differently to a life path 5, and a change is going to work differently. So a perfect example is if someone's in a personal year 4, their change will be to change the foundation and the way that they've always done things. So the 4
Can I stop you there? Because
Mm.
so first of all, the first thing I want to say is Elmarie asked about healthy and unhealthy traits for her life path. That's not the intention of this webinar, because we'd love to be able to give all of you that kind of information. But I don't know, Joe, if it's possible, starting with a personal year one, not the life paths, because I think those readings, they can contact you directly for that. Can you go from a personal year one and just
Mm-hmm.
get a couple of sentences as to what they need to focus on for next year? And those of you who know, like next year, you're a personal year one or a two, can jot down that information. Is it possible to do that, Joe?
Sure. And then what I'm just going to say is that the numbers are the numbers. So when I go
Yeah.
through a personal year one and you actually are life path one, you're going to pick up some of it as you go along.
Okay.
So, for example, if I say a personal year one is about really stepping into how courageous you are and the new opportunities you can bring about, then if you are a life path one, then you are naturally courageous and you naturally are innovative. Okay. I just want to check, does everyone have their personal year, or is there anyone who doesn't have their personal year? Can we just take a moment for that? Has everyone got their personal year?
Some have asked me and I have given them. I haven't seen any others. So I'm assuming that everyone else has their personal years. This is for 2025. So whatever personal year you are this year, you just add, you go up a number for next year.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Seems to be everybody's good.
Okay. So let's talk about the one. One is always about confidence and independence. One is about assertiveness and self-motivation. Okay. So that's going to be the key. The opportunities to do something different is about either being controlled or letting go. So either you controlling or letting go of the control. It's the places of inflexibility, which is very important. And it's also any kind of isolation. Watch for isolation. Okay. The confidence side of the two is this is the year of partnership and balance. So it's the year of finding your people. If you're in a two, it's who do you partner with? How do you find balance? And what is collaboration and teamwork? Okay. The opportunities to change there is that you are over adapt, or you don't have boundaries. There's a lot of codependency in the two. So it's all very good and well to find the partnership, but maybe it's actually going, how healthy are these partnerships for me, is very much what the two's about. The three is always the energy of the entertainer. So the three always comes in with a whole lot of expression and creativity. So it would be your year of where am I optimistic? How do I lean into my communities and my people to be playful, and to really and truly connect and to bring about creativity at the same time. Then, because there's so many people and there's all these different options and opportunities, it's a year where you've got to watch that you're not too scattered. So you can have a whole lot of ideas, but you can't tackle all those ideas. So watch for being scattered, anything that's unfocused. Sometimes when we have too many things on our plate, we also become anxious. And then you can also be really critical. It can be the year that you need to watch how critical you are about what you create and what you have. The 4 is about your practicality. So in that year, you are going to assess, how practical am I? Is everything that I have in place organized, and does it work? Where are the places where I am responsible and I need to up my responsibility? Or am I too responsible and everyone leans on me for the responsibility, is what you're going to figure out in a 4-year. And then just to touch on an example is, if you are a 4 life path number, what will happen is you will be very practical, you will be very stable and organized. And then people will lean on you too much because of that, you can end up becoming the workaholic. So in the 4, it's very important to watch in a 4 year that you don't overwork. Very important to watch that you don't overwork. It's very important to watch, how am I when things change? We know that a 4 year things are going to change, because you've got to lean into spontaneity. You've got to lean into, how do you risk, and how do you adapt? How flexible and inflexible are you? If it's your 5 year, we're really looking at expansion. So it is, how do I want to do things differently? How do I want to break out of the norm? What have I created that I now want to make bigger? That's the big thing in a 5. What have I created that I now want to expand and give more to? And the 5 tests your open mind. 5 tests how open-minded you are and how open-minded you're willing to be. And then on the other side of it, there can be a lot of impulsivity, a lot of restlessness. It can really be a year where you kind of feel non-committal at all. And it can feel unsettling to be in all of those energies, but it's actually the way that you work through and are open-minded and are adventurous with all your thoughts and everything that you have. A 6 personal year is very much about responsibility. It's very much about nurturing and creating harmony. And what's so important is that ultimately it must be the harmony for you. So a big question, if you're in a 6 personal year, is, what am I doing that makes me feel at home in my choices, is a big thing. And the opportunities to change in that is that it's to not get too enmeshed in everything that is going on, like to be able to hold your own power, not get lost in everything, not at home, feeling uncomfortable in situations, and very burdened. So it could be the year where you feel burdened. The reason why that would happen is because then in the 7 year, you would feel like, I need to go back and I need to reassess, who am I? It's the year of the scholar, the 7. So it's very much the year that you analyze everything that you've realized about yourself. And it's this play between knowledge and then stepping into your wisdom. So there's, in the 7, you actually do want to spend a little bit of time alone. So if you are in a 7 year and you feel like a calling to be a little bit isolated, go with it, run with it. It's not going to last forever. In a 7 year, watch for overthinking, right? Really watch for overthinking. And it's the year where you could want to escape. So there can be a lot of escapist stuff. And that's why whenever I talk to anyone about the 7 number in any way, when you are in isolation in a 7, please make sure that you're doing something that is of personal growth, that is good for you. If you aren't doing that, you're actually escaping. Okay. Then the 8 personal year, the 8 is always about empowerment. It's empowerment and disempowerment, and it's testing you. Do you know how confident you are? Do you know how much determination you have? Do you know how much resilience you have, right? And the other side of that is the feeling of disempowerment, the feeling of uncertainty. Anxiety can come up in a personal year 8. It definitely can. And then self-doubt is a big thing. And we're always watching for resentment in an 8. And then a 9, we are now connecting into, how humanitarian am I? What do I need to let go of? What no longer serves me? However, the greatest thing of all is, am I doing everything with compassion? Am I doing it where I'm watching out for how selfish or unselfish I'm being? Am I being empathetic? The 9 is this beautiful balance of wisdom and understanding, and then also really creating only to carry with you what you absolutely want to into the 1. And then we've got to look out for, in the 9, things like self-neglect, being really, really afraid of change, not wanting to go into change, self-doubting everything that you've realized. So that's a big thing that can happen, is you can like have the certainty of what you want to let go of, and then something could happen that sets you back, and then you go back into self-doubt. And then you would step into an 11-2, which is exactly what a 2 is, but with the layer of trusting your intuition more. And if you don't step into that intuition, for example, when you are connecting in with people, when you are finding your purpose and who you should be sharing with, then it can be a lot rockier in an 11-2 year. Good. You're all going to get the recording, so you can all listen back as well, because I know it's a lot of information, so you can all listen back at the same time. Are there any extra questions? Dar, we're nearly on an hour.
Yeah, no, I think we've so far, that summary was great. I think maybe, Joe, what we can do is to actually type up a very basic, that summary, we'll actually type it up. So people who want to just focus on that summary for next year as a guide, and it really is just a guide, it'll be there for them. I think that might be worth doing.
We would really like to, though, encourage you, because it's going to be a taste to do this, to have your numerology for the year, and to also have, because Da's going to bring in an intuitive aspect. She does the most beautiful readings, and it's, for me, it's when you really personalize it, because that's going to be, we'll absolutely get that to you, and that's just a slither of it. It's really important to learn how to layer all those different aspects. And it's actually really easy to do when you have it, because you're going to be working with your personal traits, and then you're going to be working with the collective energy, which is like, okay, we're all going through this, right? We're all going through this. But while I'm going through it, my lessons that I need to learn, that's going to be your personal year. These are my lessons that I need to learn. Okay, what within my traits are going to help me learn that lesson while we're all going through it? And you learn to work with them and layer them. Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, I have one more question. Okay, where are we? If we have transformed in some way, how do the numbers reflect that?
If you as you transform, you become, your confident traits become so ingrained in you that you literally live in the space of those confident traits. And what happens with the opportunities to change, with which other people call shadow or low esteem, is that as it pops up, you are so connected into the confidence of who you are that you spot that low esteem response really quickly, and you can actually backtrack on it like quickly. That's actually what happens. Our personalities, this is so important for you to understand, and the numerology is a slither of it, right? We've still, like, for example, I do the whole personality blueprint, which is the 38 facets of your personality. All that you do the whole time is you move into a more empowered version of yourself, or disempowered version of yourself. Your traits never change.